Hello to all my KKR fans, old and new. Welcome back to KKR Clank Clank Radio. Today, instead of hearing a new vocal cover, well, stay tuned in for a new one in the near future, I promise, I've decided to record my very first music album review on a new album by the modern rock band Breaking Benjamin, titled Dark Before Dawn. And this is the album artwork right here. Front and back. Okay, but before we delve into this new album, I'd like to point out that in the future I will be recording album reviews with a certain type of layout that I came up with. First, I'll talk about the overall feel, sound, and vibe of the music on albums, and I'll briefly express my personal thoughts and opinions about maybe the majority of the songs, not all of them, on each of them, and then I'll give a KKR rating of these albums on a 1 to 10 scale. So 1 being awful, it was a waste of my time, and I must throw it out in the trash if I have a physical copy of it. And then 10 being that this album is just amazing sex to my ears. Well, you know, I normally don't give albums a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's a rarity in my collection, but we'll see in the near future. Additionally, I will try to provide some background information regarding the band, their previous albums, changes in lineups, and possibly some details in the making of albums. I mean, if my research is anywhere near credible and valid, I'll make sure that I give you the most genuine information as possible. So, anyway, Dark Before Dawn, for those of you that are not all that familiar with Breaking Benjamin, I will save you a bit of time on interpreting the band's previous work. Dark Before Dawn, first off, is the latest album that Breaking Benjamin released just yesterday on June 23rd of 2015. And it is their first album recorded and released into the world in nearly 6 years. The reason for this hiatus is because of there's some past internal issues between the founding member, frontman, and musical architect Benjamin Burnley and 2 of his ex-bandmates. Basically, there was a lawsuit against the 2 band members not informing Benjamin Burnley nor the band management about giving Hollywood Records, which is the record company, the permission for them to do or produce 2 master recordings and then perform a new version of one of their hit songs, Blow Me Away, which for game fans out there was featured on Halo 2 and the soundtrack. And the song featured Sidney Duran of an alternative rock band called Valora. So in a judicial response, Benjamin fired the 2 bandmates via email, demanding at least 250,000 clams. That's what my Uncle Rick says. Clams instead of dollars. In compensatory and punitive damages, as well as the exclusive right to the name Breaking Benjamin. So the judge gave Ben all the clear to continue with the music. Another major reason for this major gap in the time between the previous album, Dear Agony, and the new album is that Ben had to recuperate from many years of heavy alcoholism, and which brought on his chronic fatigue syndrome and other neurological disorders, which prevented him from performing to the best of his abilities on stage. So he couldn't fully tour Dear Agony. And as I said earlier, Dark Before Dawn, for those of you that are fans of the previous band's work, portrays a sense of familiarity in terms of overall sound and song structure. I mean, a lot of other Breaking Benjamin songs start out with these subdued intros with these clean and chimey guitars that just pave the path of the song, and then it's followed by these subtle drum beats that roll into the play, where then all of a sudden the song is built up enough where the huge chugging guitars and the bass lines and hard-hitting drums just create this giant wall of sound. And that just remains in those songs. This band, like many other rock groups such as Nickelback, who I absolutely can't stand, Seether, Red, Papa Roach, Chevelle, Evanescence, and many other bands similar to them, have pretty much abided by a specific music writing formula that's prominent with each subsequent album to come in their catalog. Though I'd like to argue one day that Chevelle is starting to expand their overall sound. I've been a fan of them from the beginning. In my opinion, this formulaic approach to writing music is not necessarily a bad thing, I mean, I'm guilty of really enjoying a lot of bands that follow formula, and it works for them, and it kind of works for me. Though I tend to gravitate more towards musicians that expand their musical horizons, yet they're able to, stay true to their musical roots and style. We'll talk about that in other reviews in the future. However, I do like certain bands that follow their own formula that works for them, like Breaking Benjamin. This actually pleases the hardcore fans out there. Not that I'm a hardcore fan, I'm not. I've gotten into them a couple of years ago. Dark Before Dawn pretty much sounds just eerily too familiar to the band's 4 previous albums, but it's more of a mesh between Phobia and Dear Agony, whereas the band's debut album, Saturate, seems to be the most different. It's their heaviest and it's the most raw album to date, and it's definitely the most underrated in my opinion because it only has 2 singles, including Polyamorous. I actually liked Dark Before Dawn on my first listen. Out of the other albums, I had to let those grow on me through a longer period of time. This one didn't seem to do that for me. I actually liked it earlier on in my listening experience. Like Phobia and Dear Agony, Dark Before Dawn holds a deep concept or a story to it. And this album's supposed theme is about the tribulations that Benjamin Burnley had faced through a large portion of his musical career and personal life. So songs like Failure, which is their first single, Breaking the Silence, Hollow, and Defeated, they all talk about his struggles with overcoming alcohol abuse on top of dealing with major depression and the challenges of maintaining his sobriety in everyday living. And this is a subject matter that Burnley is no stranger to, and fans would, wholeheartedly agree with me on that. Even though Burnley writes lyrics with much perceptual thought, thematically though I think they're kind of redundant and a bit lackluster, just like the overall song structures. But once again, this is a formulaic band, so I'm not at all dismayed by this intent of theirs. However, one track stands out and of all the others, and that song is called Ashes of Eden, which is my favorite off this album. For one, this song sounds different from the other tracks. It possesses some different musical dynamics, such as Ben's vocals, which are crystal clear, and then the guitar and the bass sections are, rather ambient. Whoa. Like a full song, like more than 3 minutes is, it sounds different, like there's more space involved. Emotionally speaking, so like I said, the music in this song is, it's appropriate in conjunction with the song's subject matter. So emotionally speaking, I believe Benjamin spills out a colossal amount of fear and anxiety and inquiries in his vocals. It possibly got this religious sentiment where he talks about God and how he questions why his physical and psychological health are still in awry, and why he had to go through the lawsuit, which has basically been a major battle for him protecting his title and his keen sense of self. Ashes of Eden may possibly be a gateway, hopefully a gateway for Breaking Benjamin to, sort of branch out their style and become a little more innovative instead of stagnant, like a lot of the other groups that follow them. Other songs that may touch base on religion or the jeopardy of spirituality include Angels Fall, Close to Heaven, and The Great Divide. To wrap up the discussion about the concept of Dark Before Dawn, I really like that there are 2 instrumental tracks. The album starts with the haunting piece titled Dark, and then it ends with this somewhat inconclusive song called Dawn, and that to me has this white knuckle effect where it leaves the listener hanging on and edging for a follow-up tune. Oh well, I guess we'll have to wait for a follow-up album. By the way, the album Phobia does that too. They have 2 instrumental tracks, one in the intro and the end of the album. So in conclusion, I give this album a KKR Clank Clank Radio rating of 7.5 out of 10, which to me seems reasonable given that this band, or should I say Benjamin Burnley, has intentionally stayed on the course of his own musical formula and album themes. And I gave it a 7.5 out of 10 because of Ashes of Eden, because it stood out so well. It sounds pretty much similar to their previous albums, but Dark Before Dawn is It's a good comeback for Benjamin and his new lineup, which seems to hold promise for live performances and upcoming albums that they'll be working on. And one statement before I end this review, Ben stated in several interviews actually that he will just write music for the fans and the music that they would enjoy, and then he claims to enjoy playing the music for the fans above and beyond his own personal reasons for it. If you like this review, feel free to comment on it, and if you have not heard this album and you'd like to, check it out. Stream it on YouTube, maybe buy it if you really like it, or just stream it. And then for those of you that are familiar with Breaking Benjamin and their music, please leave a comment and your thoughts regarding the band and albums. I look forward to talking to some of you. Thanks for watching, everybody.